Yesterday, we have wrapped up right speech, the third component of the Noble Eightfold Path. For me, I think speech is really interesting to me, how words, mere words and speeches can change the world in many ways. We have seen influential figures in our contemporary times, like Obama, there are many great speakers, but the one that all of us can think of are strong figures like Obama, Trump, Lee Kuan Yew. And there's also a lot of inspirational speakers that doesn't really have to be in politics, like Nelson Mandela, Gandhi. Gandhi can inspire people. But for Gandhi, it's more like his conducts rather than his speeches, but still, he's also one of the public figure. And who else? Do you guys have any speakers that you admire? So for me, there is really this one speaker that's, I would say, at the top of the, actually, I would say he's the best speaker that I've listened so far. So let me quickly show that to you in case you're interested to listen to afterwards. So he is Professor Michael Sandel, this guy, and he is a professor on Harvard teaching philosophy. So when I listened to this, I was like, oh wow, he's really a great teacher and a great speaker as well. So if you're interested to watch this afterwards, you can, I'll paste this in the chat. So this is one of my favorite, and I would say my favorite, not just one of my favorite. It's the top on my list. Yeah, this is one, Michael Sandel. And so I'm curious about, how about you guys? Do you guys know any speakers that inspire you? Okay, even if not, we know one person who has changed our life or inspired us to be, at least to be, come here every morning, It's of course the Buddha himself. Without him, what are we right now? We would probably not even be here, and our lives would probably in a very different direction. Yeah. Okay, so there are many things to say about right speech, but right now, let's dive into the next component of the Noble Eightfold Path, right action, Samma Kamanta. Right action means refraining from unwholesome deeds that occur with the body as their natural means of expression. The pivotal element in this path factor is the mental factor of abstinence. But because this abstinence applies to actions performed through the body, it is called right action. The Buddha mentions three components of right action: abstaining from taking life, abstaining from taking what is not given, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. This we will briefly discuss in order. Abstaining from the taking of life, panatipata viramani. Herein, someone avoids the taking of life and abstains from it, without stick or sword, conscientious, full of sympathy. He is desirous of the welfare of all sentient beings. Okay, so firstly, let's define a few words here. Pivotal or pivotal. How do you spell this? Pivotal, okay.
Pivotal.
Okay, it's pivotal, not pivotal. Of relating or constituting to a pivot, vitally important, critical. So the critical element, the important element in this path factor is the mental factor of abstinence. So do you know what is abstinence? Is every day when we recite the 5 precepts, to abstain from means to refrain from doing. So this is the noun version of abstaining. So let's define it. In this definition, means not having any kind of sex, but I think this is not the definition we're looking for. So it's defined formally as the practice of restraining oneself from indulging in something, typically alcohol or sex. Yeah. So it's more about restraint, more about refraining from doing. So the important element in this path factor is the mental factor of refraining, to stop ourselves from doing abstinence. So this abstinence is applied to actions performed through body. That's why it's called right action in this component of the Noble Eightfold Path. And there are basically 3. Firstly, abstaining from taking life. Secondly, abstaining from taking what is not given, in other words, stealing, and abstaining from sexual misconduct. This will be discussed further briefly in the text below, but this is on our contemporary days. This can be categorized as molest or sexual assault, or the worst part would be, I guess, to be rape. Yeah. So the first one, abstaining from the taking of life, or simply don't kill. Don't kill anyone and any beings as well, including animals. This passage is from the sutta itself. Avoids taking of the life, abstains from it without stick or sword. Conscientious, full of sympathy, he is desirous of the welfare of all sentient beings. So what is desirous?
Desirous.
Having or characterized by desire. So he desire for the welfare of all sentient beings, and that's why he abstains from taking of life, from killing. Okay, any comments before we move on? If not, then Sister Lin Tai, would you like to read?
Abstaining from taking life has a wider application than simply refraining from killing other human beings. The precept enjoins abstaining from killing any sentient being. A sentient being, pani or sattva, is a living being endowed with mind or consciousness. For practical purposes, this means human beings, animals, and insects. Plants are not considered to be sentient beings, though they exhibit some degree of sensitivity. They lack full-fledged consciousness, the defining attribute of a sentient being.
Thanks, Lin Tai. So this paragraph firstly defines what is sentient being, because abstaining from killing refers to not killing any sentient beings. So sentient beings, for practical purposes, we define them as humans, animals, and insects. We don't include plant here because they lack consciousness, or at least full-fledged consciousness, even though they have some kind of sensitivity, So when the sun rises, they tend to face towards the sun, but we still regard them as non-sentient, at least for this purpose. Any question or comments? Okay, if not, then Lintai, would you like to nominate the next person to read?
Sister Akim, please.
The taking of life that is to be avoided is intentional killing, the deliberate destruction of life of a being endowed with consciousness. The principle is grounded in the consideration that all beings love life and fear death, that all seek happiness and are averse to pain. The essential determinant of transgression is the volition to kill, issuing in an action that deprives a being of life. Suicide is also generally regarded as a violation, but not accidental killing, as the intention to destroy life is absent. The abstinence may be taken to apply to two kinds of action, the primary and the secondary. The primary is the actual destruction of life. The secondary is deliberately harming or torturing another being without killing it.
Thanks, Akim. So here, the keyword in this paragraph is intentional killing. Then you might ask, is there an unintentional killing? Do you have example? Can you think of example of unintentional killing? I heard in the text, like there is a blind, I forget whether it's blind monk or blind arahant. And then when they walk, they probably step on ants unknowingly because they are blind. They did not see the ants. So I would say that is one example of unintentional killing. Shifu mentioned to me one extreme example. Let's say we throw a rock at a certain, we thought it's a larger rock. And then we use a small rock to throw at the larger rock. And then turns out that rock, the big rock, is actually someone's head, but that person did not know. So it ends up killing the person by throwing the rocks. But because the person did not know, genuinely did not know that it's someone's head and end up killing him, that is also not considered as killing. Even though this is a very extreme example, but the principle behind it is about intention. Yeah, of course, try not to randomly throw rocks around because it's dangerous. Yeah. So there is two examples that I can think of. How about you guys? Any example came to your mind? Okay. Another thing here, let's define the volition. Yeah, volition. So volition is the same category as will, willpower, and intention. All is under the same umbrella. So it's defined here as the faculty or power of using one's will.
I think I can think of an example. It's like in an accident. Means you are driving and then, a deer or a dog suddenly just came out from somewhere. Then you have no time to brake and just ran over. I think that should be also unintentional killing.
Yes. That is a good example. And there's also a case where, people or a person who wanted to suicide, so they waited at the side of the roads at a very high-speed highway. And they waited for some cars, a very fast one, to pass by. And then that person, when the car passed by, just jumped immediately in front of the car. Yeah. That is pretty horrible. But I would say that is also unintentional for the part of the driver. Yeah. So this is a good example for drivers around the world. But I think there is also a way to reduce the chance of this to happen is to be mindful when driving and to notice the possible crossing of beings ahead of you. Like, for example, let's say when we drive, and then at the front we spot some kind of a cats or animals on the sidewalk, or then we can start to slow down, so that if the beings or the cats cross the road, we would probably have more time to react. So this is, I think, one way to reduce the chance of this happening. Thanks again for sharing one example. So this paragraph emphasizes a lot on intention, on will, on the volition to kill. And it also covers suicide is regarded as violation, but not accidental killing, as the intention to destroy life, at least others' life, is absent. So interestingly, this covers not only just the actual killing, the actual murder, but also deliberately harming or torturing another being without killing it. So all kinds of torture. And it doesn't mention here, but does it include normal daily stuff that people do, like slapping, all those stuff? Okay, Sigrid.
I just want to ask a question. Because, for example, I do gardening, and then now and then there might be some insects that I don't want them to be around the plant. So I would have to remove them. Like sometimes I just throw the soil or whatever away, not with the intention to want to kill them, but really just with the intention of removing them away, because I don't want to be, I don't know, I don't want them to be so-called harming my plants, in that way. So then I likely will just wrap them up and throw in the bin. I mean, now that, because we are discussing on this, I've not thought beyond what is going to happen if I, to my action. You know, the intention is not to kill, but I'm not sure then eventually will that result in them being killed. Any advice?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure there is a simple answer to this, because, okay, firstly, from what I heard, the Buddha specifically did mention to the monks, to the monastics, to not do any kind of gardenings, at least in the very early Buddhist texts. Because like you mentioned, there is a chance or possibility of killing insects while doing gardening. And actually the possibility could be quite high as well. So that's why the Buddha just say to the monks, please just focus on getting alms round from people. Don't do any gardenings, don't do any kind of planting anything. So just focus on getting alms round from people and focus on your practice, your meditation. So I guess this is also one of the reasons to not harm insects while doing all of this. But later, I think Shifu mentioned that Buddhism has developed in a different way, at least in China, because people starts to become, at least the monks starts to become vegetarian because of emperor reason. Because the emperor, when they see the monks getting alms round, they was like, oh, why are my teachers running around begging for food? So this is the emperor's decree. They make the rule that the monks should not begging for food no more. And then that's, from what I heard from Shifu, that's when the monks started to do all of this gardening themselves so that they can provide for themselves. That's the origin of why Buddhists, or at least the Mahayana side, are vegetarian. And I also explore some arguments regarding being vegan or vegetarian. And in fact, to cultivate a whole land of vegetables, and it requires a lot of plowing of the land. It actually involves a lot of killing of the, people who live, beings who live on the land, like mice, squirrels, and of course, many, many insects, and I heard bees as well. So the argument is not that straightforward that being vegan actually saves animals. And this question is really no easy answer for this, at least from my side. But is your gardening like a lot, like a huge plot? No, just a small one. Yeah, if a small one, then I guess it's easier to not kill anything. Like, how big is it? Like 1 meter times 1 meter, or?
I think sometimes you just notice that the soil maybe might be infested with something, or the plant is infested with some insects. And if you don't do anything to it, the plant will die. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
But I think
thank you for sharing about the not gardening thing for Buddhists. Must give up.
Well, I mean, even if you decide to do, I think what I can suggest is try to remove the insects without harming them, as gentle as you can, something like that, if it's possible. Yeah, I don't know. How about others? Second, yes.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure if I discard it, then will they go and invest in some other place if I don't put them away properly? Yeah.
But what do you mean by discard it? Like throwing it in a bin, or?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to dispose the soil with all the infested insects or whatever, then if I don't throw them, then where do I leave them? Then it may spread to some other places. Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, actually, this is what I do when I see bugs on my shower or on the sink. I gently get a tissue and I put them on the tissue very gently, and then I place them somewhere else, like maybe in the bin, for example, but I do not kill them. Yeah. So this is what I actually do as well. So what does second thing?
Yeah. Singwei, I agree with you. Because I think about half a year ago or so, the NEA started to give us seeds, right? Free seeds for us to do simple planting at our HDB flat. So I collected some, and I also tried to do simple gardening. And yeah, there are worms, there are insects that come. So I just removed them, but I didn't kill them intentionally, like what you did. So after that, it is up to them whether they will die or they will survive. I don't really think after and after. So the intention at that moment is you have no intention to kill them, so you just remove them. But if you really want to, like not kill them and see them live, then probably you have to just take it down to a big garden somewhere that you can just throw it away. But still, there's still a chance of people stepping on them, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the intention is very important here, which is mentioned by Bhikkhu Bodhi and the Buddha. That means whatever we do, we must know what is the intention. Yeah. And I think it shouldn't stop us from doing, planting completely just because this incident. Yeah. But of course, if it's up to you whether you want to continue or not. Yeah.
And suddenly tomorrow, Xinghui give away all his garden plot. Yeah.
Oh, then probably my advice will be you grow, orchids or plants that doesn't require a lot of soil. Orchids are like they survive on charcoals. So you just have to water them, kind of thing.
Yeah. Interestingly, my uncle did his own gardening system at his place, and it's indoor, and he did all this watering system, looping water system, at a very nice shop. And when it's indoor, feels like there's no insects or any kind of things at all. So maybe you can try that if you want. Yeah, I will find that reference about the Buddha telling the monks not to do gardening, because I heard that from Shifu, but I haven't read that anywhere in the text. So if I find it, I will let you know and I'll send you. And like Saikyang mentioned, we mostly did what we can to avoid killing. So if we have placed them in a safer place, I think we have done what we can. So for example, the case of the insects in my sink, if I just leave it in my sink, and when I wash my hand, the insects, the bugs would probably drown in my sink. So that's why I place them to other places that I think would be safer. But afterwards, I did not take care of it. I did not keep the bugs as my pet to ensure the bugs live as long as possible. I make sure I feed the bugs. Yeah, I feel like that could be a little bit too far. Not that it's not good to do, but we cannot prevent all beings from dying. So there's a limit to what we can do. Yeah. So I guess that's all I can say to Xing Hui's question. A very good question. A very good question. Yes. Lin Toi, yes.
Now I have a question, not solution. Here in Singapore, dengue is quite a bad stuff, right? And then, of course, we are advised to try to kill mosquitoes in order to prevent that. So how?
Yeah, this is also another good question. And in fact, I raised this up to Shifu, and we had a long conversation on killing mosquitoes. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you guys want to hear it. It's 8:10 now. Okay then, yeah. So I asked Shifu, then Shifu, what about creatures like mosquitoes, pests, also cockroach, Well, for mosquitoes specifically, Shifu's argument was, or Shifu's logic was like this. Firstly, not all mosquitoes carry dengue. Yeah. Only a very certain specific mosquitoes carry a risk of dengue. So secondly, to kill all mosquitoes, no, not yet. The second argument is more like, even if you contract dengue, it is not certain that you will die. Yeah, that's the second argument. So if we say kill all mosquitoes just because some mosquitoes kill dengue, have dengue, carry dengue, that is also like, the same logic with kill the black people just because sometimes, occasionally, very rare occasions, that black people can kill other people. There is a risk that black people can kill other people. So we have to kill all black people. If we change the argument of the black people, if we change it to mosquitoes, isn't it the same principle? No, isn't it ridiculous to kill all black people just because a few black people commit murder, and then we just categorize everything as, oh, black people are all murderers, so we should exterminate them. So this is the argument, the ridiculousness behind killing mosquitoes. At least that's the principle. Yeah. So did you understand? Yeah. It's quite an extreme one, but I think the logics and the principles behind make sense. Yeah. Because if you apply the same categorization to humans, it doesn't have to be black people. This is how genocide happens. in the Hitler era, because Hitler thought all Jews are bad person. That's why he truly believed that if they exterminate Jews, the world will be a better place. So isn't it the same principle that we had with mosquitoes? If we, let's say, exterminate mosquitoes, we truly believe that this would make the world a better place. Yeah, and I also realized this can be a slippery slope, applying from mosquitoes all the ways to applying the principle of Jews and black people to mosquitoes. But I still think the principles or logic behind makes sense. At least that's how Shifu explains it to me. Okay.
Yeah, I understand. But I'm not sure whether I'm convinced. Because, for example, we know some kind of mosquitoes, like, the one with the 3 stripes. Those, they can cause malaria, right? So if we really see that kind of mosquito, should we kill it or not? If we don't kill it, and then of course it goes to bite someone else, and then that someone can have malaria. Then
Yeah,
the
but first
harm
principle of not killing is not killing. Yeah. So there is no I take the precept from abstaining from killing, but I can kill a mosquito. No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. There is no but here. I agree.
Yeah. So I think what we can do is prevention. That means we do our part. We remove breeding grounds of them, which is what has been in the social media and the media to teach and educate us what are the possibility of breeding the mosquitoes, and we remove that, the source. So that's what we can do. But I think if you really are taking the precept and you really want to prevent harm to all sentient beings, then even if you know that the mosquito, after the mosquito bite you, you will die, you will still not kill. Yeah, you will still sacrifice yourself for the sake and the benefit of the other sentient beings, including mosquitoes and insects, and even poisonous snakes and crocodiles and whatever you can think about that can bring harm to you. Yeah, so I think that's the principle that we have to follow and we have to cultivate, because I think we still haven't reached that stage. So we are looking at it from our perspective. The first thing that comes to mind is yourself. So the mosquito will bring you harm. That's what you think. The secondly is the mosquito is going to bring harm to my loved ones, to my family, to, yeah. So I think that's what the Buddha is trying to teach us, that there is karma. So if we intentionally kill it, then eventually you have to face the consequence of, the bad results. Yeah, when conditions arise. So if we really strictly follow, then we have to know that it's wrong and we have to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Saikyang brings a good point about prevention, because I think the Buddha is a very practical person. This is from what I heard from Shifu. He did not instruct the monk to go to the forest where there are tigers and poisonous snakes, and then you meditate on them. So what he did was avoid all this situation altogether. Like Saikyang mentioned, prevention. Just avoid being even in this situation as much as possible. Yeah. And I think those people who still get killed by poisonous snakes is probably a very unfortunate incident, and they did not expect it to happen at all. Yeah. But like Saikyang mentioned, first thing we can do, prevention. Try to remove the source of the mosquitoes breeding, keep your house clean so that there's no insects or cockroaches running around. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, I would say be very practical and try to avoid being even in this situation in the first place. So very good point by Second. And thanks for the question, Lin-Toi. I'm sure some of us have the same questions. Okay, any more comments or questions before we wrap up for today? Okay, if not, then let's do a dedication. 燕消三障诸烦恼，燕的智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，时时畅行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a non-killing Sunday ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone,
See you all tomorrow. Oh, no,
Bye.
see you on Tuesday. Tomorrow I got food
Everyone.
distribution.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you guys.